That evening, I had no idea it would become something far beyond a typical night. Leo's father wanted him to leave for his routine weekend business trip, but at the last moment, I asked him to stay. A simple favor, right? Yet, deep down, I sensed an uneasy tension simmering within him, maybe because I felt it growing inside me too. The morning carried an odd vibe. As I quietly brewed coffee in the kitchen, Leo sat at the table, supposedly focused on his homework, but it was obvious his mind was elsewhere. Then, without much thought, I turned and said, "Leo, could you hand me that coffee?" My voice came out softer than usual, like I was holding something back. There was a strange sensation within me, but I made sure my expression wouldn't betray it. When he passed me the mug, I held his hand a moment longer than necessary. My gaze lingered on his face, almost urging him to pick up on something unsaid. For a brief second, we stood there in silence before I spoke again. "Actually, since it's just the two of us today, there are a few things I'd like to discuss." Normally, I'm composed, but today felt different. My instincts rarely deceive me. "You're not a child anymore, Leo," I began, carefully choosing my words. "No secrets between us, okay?" My comment seemed to strike a chord. "Margot, what's this about? Why are you talking like this?" he asked, clearly unsettled. I offered him a faint smile, though it wasn't warm, more like the beginning of unraveling a puzzle. "I've been thinking about the space between us, Leo," I said gently. "Every day you're growing older, and it feels like there's something changing, something unspoken." I could see the confusion and unease building in him. His heart was probably pounding just like mine. "Margot, maybe you're overthinking it," he said, attempting a laugh. But the smile he gave was weak. I leaned closer and softened my tone. "But don't you feel it too, Leo? Something between us is different, isn't it?" My voice was quiet, but the weight of my words was deliberate, like a whisper cutting through the air. He didn't respond. I could tell he was at a loss, unable to put into words what neither of us wanted to admit. The lines between us were beginning to blur. "This is impossible, Margot," he finally muttered, shattering the silence. "You're my father's wife." I stepped slightly closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Leo, we're not doing anything wrong. Nobody else has to understand this," I replied with calm determination. Something buried deep within me had been unlocked, and I could feel him getting tangled in his own thoughts, just as I was. Part of me understood this was wrong, but another part had already crossed a line I couldn't retreat from. We both sat there, enveloped in a heavy quiet, letting the weight of the situation settle. I reached out and touched the pillow beside him. "Leo, this isn't just some passing thought. It's real," I said, locking eyes with him. He took a deep breath and looked away, as though trying to escape the turmoil in his head. Whatever was happening between us felt impossible, even wrong, yet somehow inevitable. "Margot, people won't understand," he murmured, shaking his head. I gave him a slow, unwavering smile, keeping my gaze steady. "People don't always need to understand, Leo. What matters is being honest with ourselves," I said firmly. The pull between us was becoming harder to ignore, and denying it felt impossible. That evening, everything changed. The barriers I'd built crumbled, leaving no way back to how things had been. The night was dark and rainy, each drop hitting the house, echoing the inner conflict I couldn't shake. I lit the fireplace and pretended to focus on a book, but I could feel his eyes on me now and then. Every movement he made felt like a magnet pulling at my resolve. "Stay until the storm passes," I said, my tone steady but almost challenging. He sat in the chair by the fire, and silence settled around us like a heavy blanket. Though we kept glancing away, both of us knew there was an unspoken tension hanging thick in the air. "Leo, do you realize how much this house means to you?" I asked suddenly, my eyes shining with memories of the past. He looked away, but I noticed the faint smile he was trying to suppress. "Of course, Margot, I grew up here. My whole childhood is wrapped up in these walls," he replied softly. I continued, my tone reflective. "I remember how you used to slide down those stairs every morning. Your dad would already be at the table having breakfast, and you'd chatter away before dashing off to your room. None of us wanted things to change back then, did we?" He nodded, but his expression couldn't fully escape my notice. For a brief moment, it felt like we had stepped back in time, reliving those shared memories in this home. The longer we talked, the more those long-buried feelings began to surface, little by little. "Sometimes I think we should have some kind of distance between us, Leo," I admitted. "But then the idea of not seeing you anymore, that terrifies me." I saw the impact of my words hit him. His face was lost, unable to respond. We had both let our defenses crumble, leaving us too exposed to take any of it back. "I understand, Margot," he finally said, his voice so soft it was barely audible. "When I'm with you, I don't always know what to say or how to feel. But I do know one thing. I'm glad to be here. His words lit a spark inside me, the light from the fire casting shadows that danced across my face and seemed to bring out the emotions I'd tried to suppress. Every time you're here, Leo, everything seems to make sense. Maybe this connection we have runs deeper than we think, I murmured. We fell silent again, out of words, but weighed down by the heaviness of what hung between us. The pull we both felt was inescapable, like a force neither of us could resist, even if we knew we should. As the rain began to ease, I placed my hand gently on his shoulder, lingering there longer than I should have. We allowed ourselves to exist in that moment, our emotions thick in the air. I tried to fight it, but with Leo sitting beside me, the walls I had built simply couldn't hold. When his hand rested on my leg, a surge of feelings rushed through me, overwhelming and undeniable. Everything we'd been holding back seemed to collide in that single instant. Our eyes met, caught in an unspoken force that neither of us had words to explain. The only thing louder than the silence was the sound of my heartbeat, pounding in my ears. "Oh, Margot," he whispered, his voice low and rough. "It's not like we're in control of this, is it?" I placed my hand over his, my voice catching in my throat. "Leo, you're my stepson," I said, each word cutting into me as I spoke. "This is wrong, but right now, I feel so lost." My eyes burned with unshed tears, but I couldn't bring myself to pull away. I could see the same conflict, the same pull, etched across his face. His fingers pressed more firmly against my leg, and his voice cracked as he spoke again. "Margot, I can't lie. I don't want to stop this. Every time I try to fight it, I end up back here with you." A part of me wanted to let go, to move away, but his touch seemed to hold me in place, tethered to the edge of a line we both knew we shouldn't cross. I tried to push him back slightly, but my body wouldn't respond. "Leo, losing myself in this, it terrifies me," I admitted. But even as I said it, I found myself leaning closer. "This isn't right, but being here with you feels so real." I tried to avert my gaze, but I couldn't. Whatever this was between us, it blurred every rational thought I had left. For just a second, it felt like the entire world had shrunk to this single room, to just the two of us. The heat radiating from him, the undeniable pull of something forbidden, dragged me in deeper. Even though every part of me screamed to stop, I couldn't escape it.